So welcome everybody. Today is the second Friday of that is September 7th. This is the Phenotype Development Evaluation Workgroup. Very quickly, as you all know, this is the OKR that we are marching towards, and I think we are doing really well in many of the objectives. Our objective to harden phenotype development evaluation framework, to improve the collaboration by enabling community-wide participation on phenotype development and evaluation, and promote the usage of the OHDSI Phenotype library. And one of the key things that we are working on this month is the promotion of the OHDSI Phenotype library by working collaboratively with the How Often effort of the OHDSI Global Symposium. This was many months ago. We kind of ranked us on how we are doing, and I think we're still doing very well. I think can add a few more check marks. The things that we need to work on is some terminology and scientific definitions. I think there's still a gap there. But I think we have started making progress on scientific papers, and I'm really excited about that. And we can talk a little bit more in the agenda. So this is the agenda that I was hoping to cover. The first one is the push that we are doing for the OHDSI Phenotype library, and by using the opportunity through How Often. How often was something that has been talked about. How often is a study that is going to perform large-scale incidence rate computation on several data sources. It will use cohorts that are in the OHDSI Phenotype library, and then use them as targets and outcome. So it will answer questions of, among the persons with a certain target, that is a phenotype, what is the incidence of the outcome, which is another phenotype, during some time at risk window. And it will compute that over a large set of P and O combinations and make that available publicly on the OHDSI podium. But the input for it is good quality cohort definitions. And there is a timeline for the submission of these good quality cohort definitions. Patrick and George Ripschak, who are the leads of the How Often, have said you have to submit your cohort definitions by September 15th. That gives them 10 days to process those cohort definitions and select the cohort definitions that they think would fit the How Often study. So this work group is the keeper of the OHDSI Phenotype library. So the pressure is on us. We want to motivate the community to make the contributions and then collect those contributions and make them available through the Phenotype library. Some of the ideas that we have worked on is, in addition to reaching out to individuals, we have reached out to the various clinical work groups in OHDSI. And the basic premise there is it's a clinical work group. Their core OKR is to create cohort definitions. So hopefully we can get the cohort definitions from them. When a survey was done of the community, there was a lot of interest in oncology. And so we reached out to oncology work group. The work group lead is Asia, and she offered to work with us as soon as she can. And initially we thought about end of August, but then because of ICPE and conference and a few other things, she asked first week of September. So I was hoping that she's on the call to provide an update. Is she on the call? I see her. I see her on the call.
I am. Good morning.
Good morning. Is it 5 o'clock for you too?
It is 6 o'clock. It's
Yeah.
okay. How are you?
Good. Welcome.
Thank you. So I mean, we're still working on it. I promised September 15th, so you would get something by September 15th.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything we can do? Paul has also offered to help in the previous call to kind of get the definitions.
No, I'm collecting stuff from the work group and then putting them together. We can send them to you, but appreciate it.
Okay, excellent. All right, thank you, Asia. The next sometime I think last week we set up a call to see how we can work with Darwin Initiative to get on some of the good work that Darwin is doing to the OHDSI Phenotype Library. There was a lot of good conversation. Some of them were difficult conversations. That conversations have been recorded. Danny, who leads the Darwin Initiative, one of the sites of Darwin Initiative, responded and offered to the collaboration, which was excellent. There's a discussion thread there. Anybody from Darwin on the call? Okay, so there is an action item which is to follow up with Darwin.
Gowtham, I work with Danny and Darwin.
Oh yeah, excellent. Do you? So one of the things that Danny said on the call was to set up a follow-up. Christian had volunteered to kind of help with that communication. Asya, if you're able, you can also. Danny offered some names. I don't know them very well, but if somehow you or Christian could facilitate the conversation of mapping Darwin work to OHDSI Phenotype Library, that would be fantastic.
Yep, absolutely.
Great. Today there is a group from VA reached out to make contributions from their phenotype work. There's an OMAP instance in the VA, and they asked to meet today. So I'm looking forward to meeting them. I'm going to be talking to them today at 10:30. There is a conversation with N3C. N3C would like to make contributions to the OHDSI Phenotype Library. There is a thread in the OHDSI forums about it. N3C has a set of what they have described as validated codeless or concept sets that they want to contribute. They are not cohort definitions, from what I understand. The OHDSI Phenotype Library is a set of cohort definitions. The unit of representation is a cohort definition, which is different from what N3C has. So we have to think hard about how to do it. There are both conceptual and technical challenges. The conceptual challenges: what is a cohort? Is a cohort a concept set, or is it actually a cohort definition? And so far, we have described it as a cohort definition. Andrew from Tufts has thoughts that it could be a concept set, and that's conceptually, I don't know how to reconcile it. So that's, if anybody is interested in that topic, that's something we can talk about. And then there's a technical challenge, which is the infrastructure of the OHDSI Phenotype Library is all centered around a cohort definition. So if we do say that we would take up concept sets, then a new infrastructure needs to be built. Juan, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, so I thought it was the phenotype library, not the cohort library, right? And a phenotype, we spent a year and a half in the previous iteration of the phenotype library deciding that, well, we reached the decision at some point that it was okay to have, just a concept set. Because, some phenotypes are defined that way by some people, and there's validity to that, right? Especially if N3C already vetted them, used them in papers, so I think that we shouldn't be, gatekeeping that much and allow them as part of the definitions. But I do agree to your point that, yes, it does need some technical changes to the current infrastructure, and if needed, I'm willing to help to make that happen, because I don't think we should be keeping off just concept sets.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate that offer. One of the biggest challenges is the technical infrastructure, the current infrastructure was built by me, and I'm not a computer programmer or do not have the background. I'm a pretend programmer, and it's working. So I'm hesitant to make changes to it at this stage in things. But yeah, with your help, I think we can explore it. And regarding the conceptual things, I see the confusion between whether it's a cohort versus concept set, and it's a debate that I don't think is fully resolved. Somebody else had that. Oh, Ben, you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I think it's this ties into a little bit about the Christian's idea of dimensions in terms of the phenotype library. I mean, I would support including a concept set as a definition with the caveat that it's clearly identified as such, and it's where it has been validated to make sure that people don't misunderstand or misuse it and assume it is, you know, a traditional phenotype type definition, because, you know, obviously a lot of the temporal relationships between the various data elements and the codes and the data are kind of important to these definitions and part of that validation. And if that was done, I'd be interested to see how they did that, first of all, because I'm deadly curious, but also if it wasn't really part of their validation, then also it should just be transparent about that.
Okay, so if it sounds like the group is interested in pursuing concept sets as part of the phenotype definitions, I'm supportive of it, but we will need to work out some details as to what is a suitable concept set, what type of validation is required, what is the technical infrastructure to support it. So I'm calling for a subgroup that is interested in this to pursue it further.
And I mean, to be clear, I think it should not be just a, you know, we should not just accept any concept set as a cohort definition. I think it really should be only those unique instances where they have been validated to perform as such, right? Otherwise, we would just be, you know, guilty of sort of importing all the concept sets that are in the, you know, in the concept repository.
Right. 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 I think we need to create a set of rules for sure. Aza?
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about how we're handling this, and I'm not tied to one opinion or the other, but for the last 3 years, every single presentation coming out of OHDSI about how we perceive phenotypes have been defining phenotypes as a cohort with an entry criteria, with an exclusion criteria, with a start and end date logic and error logic, which by definition means it's not a concept set. And it's not only that the phenotype library we currently have is built that way, but it's actually the entire OHDSI stack is built that way. Our atlas does not support a library of concept set. It does have a repo, but it's not well kept. It's not maintained. While our cohort definitions is a JSON objects that are by nature allow you to maintain it and handle it in a Git repo. So it's not an easy to say let's redefine our phenotype to be a concept set without the other attributes, which is the entry criteria, inclusion criteria, and start and end date. The other thing that goes in my mind is that doesn't mean that a phenotype library doesn't have an element of a concept set repository. We can do that as well, but I don't think we need to say a phenotype it could be just a set of concepts, because that really frame it differently. I don't think there's wrong or right. I do think people think of phenotypes as a concept set as well, but from a technical perspective, I think we need to think of the unit of the library as a cohort definition and not a phenotype, because the way the OHDSI stack is built. This is my opinion. But I do think we can have a repository for well-kept concepts that either attach or not attach to a phenotype definition or cohort definition.
Yeah, I think if you remember, so I agree with what Aza is saying, and I have reservations on the use of the term phenotype. I do not have objections to creating a repository of concept sets or codeless. That is fine. But calling that repository a phenotype is something that I'm concerned with. And that is because the word phenotype has a definition associated with it. And the definition is a changeable state of an organism. So a state of an organism can be represented by codes, that is hypertension codes or heart failure code. But the change in the state is not represented in a codeless. That is represented in a cohort definition, because a cohort definition has a start date. A cohort has a start date and an end date for a person. And so a phenotype has to represent both the state of the person and the ability for the state to change. And because of the requirement for both of them, I think phenotype can be equated to cohort and not concept set. Now, again, no objections on creating a repository of concept set that could be used as a building block for a cohort definition. Absolutely no problem. But
yeah, so I guess Gowtham, my perspective is that I actually agree with both of you and Azan. I think that this group in the phenotype library should adhere strictly to that definition of the phenotype. I just didn't want to cut off innovation. I wanted to put the burden of proof on N3C folks to show that their idea meets that definition and not allow us to expand, try and accommodate everybody by being very flexible around the edges of our phenotype library, right? I agree that the library should stick to its principles and its design and its definitions and be standardized in that regard. And hold those criteria sound and leave it up to others to meet those standards, if you will.
perfect.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, we probably don't want to go down the rabbit hole too much farther, but, you know, the question is whether people who are, you know, the NC3 group, N3C group is thinking that they're equating concept sets with cohort definitions. And it sounds like, I mean, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I guess the question is, are they actually doing that? Or are they thinking that the concept, you know, considering the concept set is a basic building block of a cohort, and to get the concept set correct is a huge first step to actually building the cohort definition. You know, to have a repository of blessed concept sets would be great. And then then they become modules within the cohorts, and you can use them however you want.
Well, I think you have to use concept sets that are part of the phenotype, because we all know that a concept set can be defined expansively or not, and that is completely tied to the validation of that particular phenotype. I mean, that's what we see in the measurement space all the time.
Yeah.
Terminologies are dangerous, you know. So
but that's the nice thing about the concept set, because the concept set can then be specifically defined for what it is. You know, so, you know, I'm working with one where, you know, you could have an MRI concept set, you know, with all the MRI procedures with it, or you could have a concept set that specifically limits MRIs to MRIs of the chest. And
exactly.
and then from a concept set perspective, you can have those named specifically, and then plug and play those with whatever you need.
And that's exactly what we do. And then we use an OID to define that particular concept set that we link to the measure. So that's exactly right. And that's how we validate it. We don't just sort of allow any, you know, term to define the concept set for any type of measure. Otherwise, you're not going to get any kind of comparability or reliability. So,
yeah. Jamie's next, and then Juan.
I was just going to ask, maybe I missed it, but are we certain that the N3C group that has this code or concept set or codeless repository doesn't have some implicit logic included with each of these concept sets, and it's just something that we haven't missed? I haven't looked at it myself, so maybe I'm unaware, but like perhaps there is these concept sets are included with first occurrence of blah with some amount of pre-time, and then that's not just missed. Or are we certain that it is?
Yeah, okay. I can answer that question because I was with Gowtham when we looked. So their tool maintained kind of two levels of it. There is in their tool, there is a concept set as basically a list of code that represent certain terms. So diabetes, and then codes that represent diabetes and SNOMED. So there is that. Then their tool use those concept set in particularly usually two ways: either earliest occurrence, first occurrence, and that's it, and that when they use that when it is representing think about it as a target cohort, or they're using it any occurrence, and that's when they use it as a covariate in their outputs. So it's really it's either any occurrence overlapping a target cohort, which is think about it as a covariate, or target cohort, which is an earliest occurrence. So this is the two use cases they have.
So it's not devoid of logic. It just has rudimentary logic included with it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, so we all agree then.
Looks like Evan's got his hand up here real quick.
Evan and who wants next?
Hi, yeah. So that's exactly what was mentioned. It does have a very rudimentary. It's similar to Aphrodite, right? You use the first mention and as a start date, and your end date is either a specified set of time or end of record. So you do have that structure with the concept set, and it does have inclusion because you have include codes and exclude codes as well. So so it does have all the features, but like Jamie was saying, it's just rudimentary.
I'm surprised,
what-
and I'm surprised and pleased to hear that it has like a cohort exit type criteria, because that's not common outside of the OHDSI community.
So Juan, their cohort they're using something different from the cohort definition than that we use in, let's say, Atlas. To be able, because we don't with Atlas, you can't apply logic to a concept set, start and end dates or anything like that. So there's something different in their structure.
They have a
Yes.
tool. Yeah.
A lot of them get converted to fee codes as well.
But the bottom line is they use this to create a cohort, right? When they speak of validation, I assume that's what they're referring to, is that they have, and maybe that's a misunderstanding as well. But if they have, created a basket of subjects and validated them in some other way, then it's executable as a cohort. And I wonder if so there's enough logic there to create a basket of people.
Yeah, I believe this is when they say clinically validated, that is, it is semantic selection of codes, not understanding the population level characteristics of the persons identified.
It's more than
Okay.
that, Gautam. It's more than that. So they didn't validate, meaning that they didn't look at people in any particular case. They did they did more than they did work. So this is why Andrew feels strong about this. They did work in terms of expert opinions and refining those code lists with clinicians within the network. They also did Gautam do some basically going to the EHR and like they didn't do a traditional validation, and they didn't do patient level, like group level evaluation, but they did dig deep into this code set. So they believe that those code set truly represent the clinical topic that they are addressing in each area.
Yeah.
So, but they don't necessarily use a logic to define a group of people where they somehow went and validated that the people truly have or don't have what they have identified.
Yeah, so like as I said, I do not believe they looked at individual cases or groups of cases, individual persons or groups of persons, but they looked at
The codes.
pattern
did.
codes.
Yeah, they looked at the codes and did a clinical assessment of the codes to make sure they all followed some, whatever they named their concept set.
Exactly,
Correct.
but it's not only semantics. They did more gymnastic than that. It's not like they just semantically looked at them and say, okay, those semantics agree.
They would look at some authoritative source like the CDC published site, do comparisons, look at literature maybe to see if how others have built a concept set for that clinical idea, say pulmonary embolism. I mean, we can get more specifics when we talk to them. There is an upcoming meeting that's on the OHDSI forums. If anybody from the work group is interested in that conversation, it is an open call. It is part of this work group. So please come join that, and we can ask the specific questions. Then we can also see.
When is that call, Gowtham?
The call is September. It's right here. This one, September 13th at 11 a.m. Eastern time.
Fortunately, I'm at HL7 next week, so.
Is it a clash for you?
Yeah, I do the HL7 work group meetings all next week, so.
Okay. Yeah, the meeting schedule is not controlled by me. It's controlled by the N3C. That's when their team members were available. And that, yeah. Okay. Would love you to come if possible. We'll record the session.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I love Az's point of the semantic gymnastics. I mean, it sounds like they've done sufficient gymnastics, and I think it would be defensible that they have essentially done the cohort definition. But again, I think the burden should be on them to demonstrate the evidence for the validation protocols and whatever else they used, and see how well it matches our definition of phenotype. So
yeah, Juan, if you can come on that time, that would be much appreciated. Mainly because of also thinking of from a technical point of view.
Sure.
The next topic, ophthalmology work group of the OHDSI reached out. They had this a forum post. They are building core definitions for various types of uveitis, and they asked for some help. So I was able to work with them to provide some input. That meeting was yesterday and is recorded, but I'm looking forward to their contribution. They have several phenotypes that they're currently working on, and hopefully they'll get that before the how often deadline of September 15th. SOS challenge phenotypes, there are several of those. Cindy Kai, she one of the leads of the SOS challenge, she did make a forum post, but it is not complete. So I reached out to her for some clarifications, but haven't gotten word back. So I'll try to remind her or to reach out again. Would like to get the SOS challenge phenotypes into the OHDSI Phenotype Library. Evan, you have some also, correct, that you have responsibility for?
Are you talking about SOS or well, we have, if you're referring to the how often, there's a set of perioperative and surgery phenotypes that we're interested in processing. Some, and maybe this can be resolved in this call, had been built into the COVID-19 atlas, and I don't know what happened to that atlas instance. It's gone. So I mean, yeah, if it's gone and irretrievably gone, I can look at trying to rebuild them. But I didn't really maintain, like, embarrassingly, didn't maintain another kind of another source for those cohorts. But I can rebuild some. I can rebuild them. It's just going to take some time.
Right. I don't know what happened to the Atlas COVID. I think probably got cut because of no funding.
What a great use case for a phenotype library.
Yes. Yeah. The Atlas instance that just disappears. Okay. And then from an SOS perspective, there's some definitely kind of some work on my plate with respect to the aortic syndrome phenotypes and stuff that it might be good, just to review. I've looked at the criteria for inclusion in the phenotype library, especially in the context of how often, based on the reviewing the community call, but it was basically needs to be executed on a single data source, which that would get check marks there, and that needs a forum post. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So the SOS challenge may be an exception because there's some posts already, so you could probably just cross-reference them. The idea behind the forum post is just some anchor point for conversation. So if somebody has a question about a particular core definition, they can talk to the originator of that core definition, or somebody who's considered the owner or authority for that core definition. Okay.
The deadline of so I'm on service for the next week. The deadline for the 15th, that's inclusive of that Saturday?
I'll give you till 16th.
Oh, that'd be nice. That way I get to work the next 2 weekends in a row, and that makes me happy. Thanks, Gowtham.
But Gowtham, remember there are two folds. There is the phenotypes that need to be that need to reach the phenotype library, which is you kind of can give him one day, or anybody can give more days. But you guys need to make sure that your clinical question of interest gets into the how often protocol. And that is some that you would need to comment. You need to post on the forum on, I believe George put a big forum post about the protocol and attached it. So if you do not add a T and an O, and that's what your phenotypes are in for. So if you say we wanna estimate the incidence of something in this or in the or background, the target population, you will need to put that in the forum. Otherwise, your clinical question which your phenotypes represent, won't be in the protocol, and it needs to be in the protocol so different institutions can get it approved.
Yeah, I've actually not gone through the full protocol, so we need to get some guidance from George on how to do that. Because
Is that deadline
actually,
also the 15th?
He shared it just the other day, so like it's
Yeah.
available. I haven't looked at it yet myself either.
Yeah, and I can't even find that post.
I think it's in OHDSI Studies GitHub repo. How often in the documents? Here, I'll try to find it right now.
Here it is. So he's put it on a GitHub page, github.com audit studies. How often? Yep. Draft is open for feedback, and we will revise an extra document containing TNOs. Okay. So after the September 15th deadline, that's when they will look at TNOs. So if you're essentially, if your definition is not in the phenotype libraries, or it's not in the pipeline for the Phenotype Phebruary by September 15th, it won't be eligible for them to select the TNO.
But again, it's fine, but at least put your interest that you want to lead, like this, like you have interest in this T and this O, because they won't know which is the T, which is the O, what's the clinical question behind those phenotypes.
Right. Okay.
So you can put it in a forum, you can let George or Patrick know somehow. You just need to make sure that your specification is mentioned so they can add it to the protocol. And then, of course, it also needs to be, the phenotype needs to exist.
Yes.
I just tried to open the Word document for that, and the file might be corrupt unless something funny is happening on my side. But
I opened it the day they posted it, but I didn't try any, like I didn't do it yesterday.
When I opened it, had worked for me, but I don't know.
Yes, me too.
Okay. All right. So that's about the how often and how, the importance of what we're doing right now, the push that we're doing. So submissions are trickling in. I have heard a lot of individuals have reached out saying that they are working to make the submissions right now. So that's about the submissions. And then one of the ideas that was talked about at the OHDSI work group leadership call was to send personal emails. So I have to send out personal emails. I'm hoping to do it today to individuals. So if you think of any individual that would benefit from a personal nudge anywhere in the community, so any scientist that has worked on core definitions and they may be willing to contribute, given a little nudge, let me know. You can send me a message or just let me know now, and I will send a personal email to them asking them to contribute. Next topic.
Gautam, that includes the main, we already covered the main clinical work groups, right? Oncology, ophthalmology, and surgery.
This is like some investigator in the entire world who's using OHDSI stack and OHDSI systems or OMOP systems and has core definitions that they would like to contribute.
Understand, but other than that, our main clinical work groups lead already. We're in contact with them, and we are in the process of getting that's oncology, ophthalmology, and surgery. Correct?
Yeah, those are the main work groups so far. Correct.
Do we know of any other work group that are active and how about the health equity? I feel like they have phenotypes. Does anybody know anybody in the Juan? Aren't you? I feel that they have, because they worked on something that has to have phenotypes. Okay, maybe not.
Okay.
And Gautam, did Patrick say that tomorrow he will mention it, not tomorrow, Tuesday, he will mention it in the community call?
I mean, you know, Patrick, he thinks about it 5 minutes before, so I don't know.
Right.
No, I'm joking. I know he will, and this is the nature of the push. So we are going to try to get this initiative as much attention as possible, and he will bring it up in the next Tuesday call. Next topic here is about the OHDSI Symposium 2023. This work group has a time protected time for a face-to-face meeting. We made a proposal for the agenda, and that proposal was accepted. And now I have posted a little bit of specifics for it. This is a long post, but the general idea here is let us build on top of how often. So we have definitions in the OHDSI Phenotype library. Some of them will be used for how often, and how often is a large-scale incidence rate characterization. Let us augment a subset of the how often cohort with population level characterization information. So now you have incidence rate analysis and population level characterization, which is like baseline covariates to temporal covariates. And let us enable scientists to use the OHDSI Phenotype library to perform collaborative scientific research for peer-reviewed publication. So if you are interested in a surgical cohort, or if you're interested in a clinical idea, this is an opportunity. So we will have incidence rate analysis results. We'll have the demographics, baseline drugs, baseline conditions, procedures, information. And let's work together on papers related to those clinical ideas. So that's basically what we want to work together. The objectives here are in line with our OKRs. We want to promote clinically trained scientists to perform research using the OHDSI Phenotype library. We want to promote the OHDSI Phenotype library, and that's basically the summary of this post. Have you guys had a chance to look at it? Any thoughts?
So would this be something that would be specified in that protocol that George was posting, that there would be, and you mentioned here a subset of,
Yep.
Because actually this, to be honest, this is the missing piece in terms of even just kind of creating the scientific product that might come out of this. Because I can imagine within some of these, for instance, in the perioperative surgery, one of our OKRs was a characterization of that major non-cardiac surgery cohort. A table of incidence rates of outcomes might not be enough, and
Yep.
You lose the ability to provide that kind of light characterization that would otherwise come from something like this. So I guess, how would you escalate that requirement, or that desire that we'd want to be included in the subset of things that gets a broader, I presume here a cohort diagnostics run.
Right. So the two named leads for how often are George Ripshak and Patrick Ryan. Yeah. I have talked to Patrick about it, and we did not come to an agreement on whether this should be something that's appended to the how often protocol or is a standalone protocol. In either way, we need a protocol that needs to be written and has to be put into like OHDSI studies for public comments, and then we ratify it. The protocol will say what I just said, which is we're going to start from the OHDSI Phenotype library. We're going to use a subset of codes that are part of how often. We're going to reuse the results of how often. We're going to augment the results of how often with some population level characterization data. We're going to use a combination of the two to drive insights, and we're going to write about those insights as scientific papers for peer review. It will have individual leads. Each question will have an individual lead, and we'll collaborate as a community to work on that goal. But yes, that needs to be either a protocol amendment or a standalone protocol that needs to be ratified prior to the symposium, for sure.
Okay. And we're not sure if it's going to be which of those two paths it's going to be.
Yeah, so I've not had an opportunity to talk with George Ripshak, who's the primary lead. I've only had an opportunity to talk with Patrick.
Yeah. Is there appetite? I mean, I guess it involves execution of another package, right? Like, I mean, it increases the complexity of that run that we're kind of hoping to get done over the course of the symposium. I mean,
yeah. So it might. So technically, it might increase the complexity, but it may not. If cohort diagnostics is a required component for phenotype development and evaluation, this population level characterization results can come from core diagnostic itself, because core
Okay.
diagnostic has that. So
Yeah.
so it may not increase complexity, or it might, you know. So we still have to think through operationalization of it.
Okay. So I mean, if cohort diagnostics was planned anyway, then I mean that provides most of what we need. So I guess that would be the other point of feedback. We might want to specify that it's being done, and there's going to be population level characteristics, at least to the extent that it's provided by cohort diagnostics. Those will be available.
Yeah, and Evan, with this in this post at the bottom, we're looking for volunteer study leads. If you wish to lead a characterization study as the lead investigator, i.e. first author, we encourage you to contact the work group leaders via email. If selected, similar to the OHDSI Phenotype February 2023, we will, we'll help the volunteer leads throughout the project. We'll enable you in assessing operating characteristics of the definition, i.e. look at core diagnostics and potentially p-evaluator, identify errors, and interpret the characterization results, and facilitate manuscript preparation. So if you're Andrea Noel and you have something to do with anaphylaxis, or if you're Evan Menti, who's want to complete their work on perioperative surgical cohorts, this is an opportunity to be the lead. Let's see Andrea on the call. I'm hoping she'll unmute and make a comment.
I'm hearing you.
Sounds good. Thanks.
So looking for study leads, what do you guys think? Do you think this is something that would be interesting for the community? Or do you think we should change it?
100%. This is actually the path that you could, the best path you could hope for deployment of a network characterization study, which is otherwise, pretty big lift for any work group on its own. So to be able to attach yourself to something like this is ideal.
Excellent. Okay. And Andrea, since you're doing anaphylaxis, are you coming to the symposium?
I am coming
Excellent.
for the whole time, all the way through the weekend. Really excited to learn more and work with you all.
Awesome. Thank you. Anybody else, before I go to Jamie, anybody else that's currently on the call would like to lead a clinical idea? Anybody you know would be interested in this and to lead a effort?
Yeah, Gowtham, I've actually got an initiative right now at NCQA where I'm trying to get our data scientists and our research scientists involved in OHDSI. And I know that a number of them are struggling with some clinical questions for some of the measures that we're trying to develop. And I think this would be a really good opportunity for me to get them engaged. And I think the mentoring option would be perfect. Are they going to be there in October? Probably not, but I think at least this could be an opening. So I'm hopeful, fingers crossed.
Excellent, excellent. Jamie.
Thanks. I was gonna say, and this is definitely pending Joel Swerdell's agreement, that he and Eva and Audrey and some others at Janssen did a really nice phenotype evaluation paper on pulmonary arterial hypertension that involved, I think you used both cohort diagnostics and phevaluator on this. Correct me if I'm wrong, Joel, but there might be an opportunity for you to present this, or at least just go over it in the high level as an example of what one of these phenotype development and evaluation papers could look like, to give a little bit of the format and structure.
Oh, wow, that's a great idea.
And again, Joel, I know how busy you are. Adding more to your plate is horrible, but it might be a nice framework for others that are going to embark on similar papers to do this. And they could and it would be very helpful to hear some of the struggles that you encountered in getting it published. And I think you worked on another one that you eventually got out as well, the SME paper.
Yeah, lupus. Yeah.
Right.
SLE. Yeah.
SLE.
That would probably be the simpler one to do. I was the first author on that one, so if we want to go through an example of one, I'd certainly be happy to do that.
I think one of the things that Evan and I had talked about is to create like a template, a scalable template that could be a guidance to the community because that can be based on your work, Joel.
Yeah,
So
I mean that's we sort of used it on. Jill sort of took the template that I built for SLE and did it for hidradenitis suppurativa.
yeah. And Jamie, this also builds on your acute pancreatitis workshop from last year.
Yes, that I've not written a paper about yet.
Hayden, you have your hand raised.
I think this could be an important thing to bring up with Cypher. You know, Scott Duvall has a lot of citations, and if we can throw one to another data partner, assistant or director with Cypher, I think that would be get them kind of moving a little bit in that direction. So something to keep in mind.
Excellent. Is that something we want to bring up in our call at 10:30 with them?
I can, and actually, I don't know if that it got to you, but it's actually 1:30. One of the PI's time difference stuff. So
1:30 Eastern time.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I don't think my calendar still shows it at 10:30 in the morning. I believe we'll have to figure it out. Okay. This is my, oh, there it is. Okay, that's moved. This is my Odyssey calendar. Okay. We'll figure it. I'll have to see what day work schedule. I'll figure it out. Excellent. Hayden, because now that I have you on the call, do you think we can switch the meeting invite from this Teams to Odyssey Teams? And the reason, and that's only if they feel comfortable. The reason is that will make it available for everybody in Odyssey to join if they want to. Or if you think that this needs to be just a VA, that's fine. But I just wanted to call it out. Okay, let's think about it. What else is there to talk about? Topics. Okay, I see Christian is not on the call, but Asia, you're on the call. This is the given a cohort that has been submitted to the OHDSI Phenotype Library. You and Christian worked on what was termed as dimensions or use cases. Some of the words that Christian talked about were undercoded, overcoded, non-recurring, recurring, severe, incident, prevalent, and many other things. We tried to capture it, but then we felt like there's little ambiguity here, and we need to work on terms. We like the idea. We just need to make sure that it is clearly defined before we can go about. I like the idea. So as of right now, in the Odyssey submissions, all we are saying is just tell us what is the word here. No, this is still evolving. Let's see.
Yeah, one thing I think that would be really helpful before we even dive into the details about what sort of falls into this template, it'd be really nice to have a standard purpose definition for each of these phenotypes in the terms of its context of use. I think that's one thing that's been talked about a lot in the data quality realm, but they sort of push it off to the end user saying, well, the end user is responsible for setting up the, for the purpose, so we can assert that it is fit for use. And I'm not sure that those purposeful definitions are really, or intentional definitions for purpose are not really, I mean, they're not really standardized, but they're also not really there in many instances. I think that'd be a really helpful first level, like, what purpose was this developed for? Was it for how often? Was it for quality measurement? Was it for surveillance? Was it for, even at that level would be really helpful to sort of start narrowing it down and almost create like a stack in for the sort of definition and the appropriate context of use for this phenotype. Also, was it peer reviewed? But I mean, just like a check mark would be really helpful to understand. Just not, the next level down.
Yeah, agreed.
I mean, I think it may be unrealistic to get into the level of detail of like the disease state and things like that, but you could at least, I think, at the meta level, have a series of characteristics that would be you could check mark against, or you could assert a level of parameter for how you should be using this, and because this is how it was developed and tested, essentially, or validated.
Yes.
Yeah, I like this idea. One thing that I've always wondered about is, and not being a clinician, I don't know, but how, if we're looking for a dimension, is how accurate the disease can be diagnosed. So to give some level of perspective on the diagnostic capabilities for a disease. Maybe atrial fibrillation, for instance, might be relatively easily diagnosed versus scleroderma, which might be more difficult to diagnose. And the quality of the diagnostic testing that's available, and or whether this is clinician's opinion. So I was wondering whether that would be for me, that would be a useful disease dimension I would like to see in there.
Mhm.
I mean, just but also in the context of some chronic diseases like diabetes, where there are about a zillion different ways you could essentially diagnose it. I mean, we're looking at 7 different phenotypes for type 2 diabetes right now for our measures, and it's kind of insane. So having some parameters around, okay, well, what context and what specific relationships are you looking for to kind of get a consistent and reliable definition for diabetes at the earliest stage possible is kind of the parameters you need to be able to describe.
Yeah, so what I want to hear is, Asia, I know you're on mute. I would like, Asia, instead of focusing on the content, I would like an idea on how to advance this further. So like maybe we should create a dedicated group to talk about it.
So that's actually what I wanted to say. Is everything that you said, Ben and Jamie, these are exactly why we started putting the dimensions together. But the idea, like the list, I think you captured it all. Seems that Christian remembers it all. So the idea was that we start with something. This is not definitely a definite list. It's not at the end of it. That's like, and we know that this needs to be worked out. And since there are other things that needs to be added, how accurate, for example, a disease can be diagnosed, or other dimension. And I am not sure whether Christian has shared the draft, or some of you have seen it or not, but we have a draft document or an SOP that has like explanation and example of every one of these specific dimensions, and like what does that mean with the context. But we also understand that this still needs to be worked out. So there's a lot more clarification to it, and other things that needs to be discovered, right? Like discussed, like do we really need to have, like, for example, baseline characteristics and follow-up characteristics, or like characteristics or covariate by itself is sufficient. That is, so the intention was to start and then bring it to this work group, and this is exactly the same thing that we're also discussing with Darwin, and we're working through this with Darwin as well, to complete it and make it available for use.
Yeah.
So,
and again, I think one of the things I was suggesting was starting at the upper level instead of coming from the bottom up, kind of doing it top down. But also, I think too, the other thing that might be helpful in this is if you're creating this list, is what are the must-haves in this list, and what are it'd be nice to have this information, but it's not absolutely necessary for people to actually use this phenotype for other for their own purposes. Kind of like we do in the HL7 site. It's a must pass, or it's a one-to-many relationship or something along those lines, where we can sort of say, be great to have it, but it's not absolutely necessary as the core criterion for evaluating this phenotype in particular. Because there's a lot of detail here, and I worry that this is going to be very burdensome for someone to complete this level of detail. It'd be like submitting a 3,000-page NQF submission form to for an evaluation of something. That kind of puts the burden on the phenotype developer.
Yep. Okay, so Asia, I want to ask you, are you and Christian open to, or able to, or ready to create a subgroup to work this further?
Yep, we love that.
So let's talk offline. Let's talk about how to do it. You'll have to pick a date, and then I'll set up like a subgroup in this channel that you'll have full control over, and you can set up meetings, invite the groups, record it, and so on. And then maybe sometime in December, do you think we can do like a session where you can give an update to the group, or is that timeline okay?
September or December, you said, sorry?
December.
Yep, yeah.
Okay.
We can do that. I gotta run, but we can chat later. Bye.
It's 10 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.
Paul, I don't know, last minute comments about the early investigator. Apologies, I opened the topic up, but did not give you an opportunity.
It's 10 o'clock. I'm happy to provide an update next time. It's not a big deal.
Okay, thanks. That's it. That's all I have for time for today. Thank you for the wonderful conversation. And apologies for the font size 6. Next time it will be font size 4.
Nice ending.
Bye, guys.
See you all. Bye.
See you.